For decades, Dodge muscle cars followed one simple rule: louder, faster, angrier. Big V8 up front, tire smoke out back, and absolutely zero apologies. The Charger and Challenger didn't just dominate streets, they defined what modern American muscle was supposed to feel like. And now, Dodge has rewritten that rulebook entirely. No Hemi, no rear-wheel drive default, no familiar soundtrack. Instead, we get a straight six, all-wheel drive, a cyberpunk design, and a personality crisis that has muscle car fans arguing harder than ever before. This is the 2026 Dodge Charger Sixpack, and today we're answering one brutal question. Is this thing still a muscle car, or did Dodge accidentally build something else? Let's get one thing straight right away. This car is not slow. In fact, on paper, the 2026 Charger Sixpack Scat Pack Plus is downright serious. Under the hood sits Stellantis Hurricane 3-liter twin-turbo inline-six, pushing out a hefty 550 horsepower and 531 pound-feet of torque. That power goes through an 8-speed automatic and, for the first time in Charger history, standard all-wheel drive. With launch control engaged, this big coupe rips to 60 miles per hour in exactly 4.0 seconds and clears the quarter mile in 12.3 seconds at nearly 115 miles per hour. Those numbers are no joke, especially for a car tipping the scales at almost 4,900 pounds. But here's where things get interesting. The outgoing V8 Challenger Scat Pack, with less power and only rear-wheel drive, matched that same 0 to 60 time. And the Ford Mustang Dark Horse, with only 500 horsepower, absolutely walks away from the Charger at the drag strip thanks to its lighter weight and sharper tuning. Suddenly, raw numbers stop telling the full story, because muscle cars have never been about spreadsheets. They've been about how the car makes you feel. Around town, the Charger Sixpack feels refined, almost too refined. The Hurricane Straight Six is smooth, quiet, and extremely responsive once you're moving. But initial throttle tip-in can feel twitchy, like the car isn't quite sure whether it wants to cruise or attack. In traffic, it behaves well enough, but push it harder and the transmission starts showing cracks. Downshifts are sometimes delayed, paddle shifters feel numb, and the tachometer isn't as readable as it should be when you're chasing redline. That sense of mechanical connection Dodge fans expect just isn't fully there. And then there's the sound. This is where the argument really explodes. The Charger Sixpack doesn't roar, it hums, snarls lightly, and whooshes like a German performance car. To many ears, it sounds closer to a BMW M4 than a Detroit Street Fighter. It's not a bad sound, in fact, it's a pretty good one, but it's not the sound Dodge built its reputation on. When longtime Charger owners hear this engine, the emotional disconnect is immediate. This isn't a baritone bellow, this is precision. Handling is where Dodge clearly aimed to evolve the Charger beyond straight-line dominance. On the highway and through sweeping mountain roads, the car feels planted, stable, and confident. Steering is nicely weighted and surprisingly direct for something this big. The ride is firm, sometimes bordering on harsh over broken pavement, but that stiffness pays dividends when the road starts to twist. This is a Charger that feels comfortable being driven hard on real roads, not just in straight lines. But take it to the limit, and reality bites. The test car's Goodyear Eagle Sport all-season tires are the weakest link in the entire package. Push the Charger hard into corners, and understeer arrives early and aggressively. Trail braking becomes nearly impossible without overwhelming the front tires, forcing early braking and conservative corner entry. Body dive under braking is noticeable, reminding you that despite the futuristic look, this is still a very heavy car. The figure-8 lap time matches the old Challenger, but falls well short of the Mustang Dark Horse, which feels sharper, lighter, and more eager to dance. Braking performance tells a similar story. While the Brembo brakes feel strong and easy to modulate in daily driving, they don't deliver the stopping power you'd expect at this price point. A 119-foot stopping distance from 60 miles per hour is simply not competitive in today's performance landscape. Compared to the Dark Horse's absurdly good 86-foot stop, the Charger feels outgunned the moment you start driving aggressively. Yet, despite all of this, there's something undeniably compelling about the Charger Sixpack's design. Dodge has fully embraced a futuristic, cyberpunk aesthetic, and it works. The full-width light bar up front, the sharp edges, and the long, low silhouette give the car serious presence. This thing looks like it escaped from a dystopian video game, and on the road, people notice. It doesn't rely on nostalgia, it creates its own identity. Step inside and the transformation continues. The interior is modern, digital, and unapologetically tech-forward. A massive 16-inch digital gauge cluster sits behind the wheel, paired with a 12.3-inch infotainment screen that's responsive and easy to use. The graphics won't win awards, but functionality is solid. There's real space here, too. Actual adult-friendly rear seating, something few coupes can claim. Storage is thoughtful, especially the dual phone area with wireless charging. Materials are a mixed bag. Carbon accents look great, but some plastics feel cheaper than they should at this price point. Still, the cabin feels special in a way that most performance cars don't. And that brings us to the most controversial part of the Charger Sixpack, its price. Starting just under $62,000 and climbing past $70,000 when optioned, this car sits in dangerous territory. At this level, buyers have options, very good ones. Mustang GTs, Dark Horses, even lightly used performance luxury cars all start crowding the conversation. And while the Charger offers space, presence, and all-weather capability, it struggles to justify its cost purely on performance alone. So what is the 2026 Charger Sixpack really? It's not the king of drag strips, it's not the sharpest track weapon, and it's definitely not the loudest car in the room. What it is, instead, is a reinterpretation of American muscle for a world that's changing fast. It's more refined, more composed, more technologically advanced, and yes, more controversial. For some, this evolution makes sense. For others, it feels like a betrayal. The real problem isn't that the Charger Sixpack is bad, it's that it's caught between two identities. It wants to honor Dodge's muscle legacy while simultaneously preparing for a future without V8s. And right now, that balancing act feels unfinished. If Dodge were to bring back a Hellcat, just one final, supercharged Hemi monster, this Charger would instantly make more sense as the reasonable option. Without that emotional anchor, the Sixpack stands alone, asking buyers to accept a new definition of muscle. So, is the 2026 Dodge Charger Sixpack buff enough? On paper, absolutely. In execution, mostly. In spirit? That depends entirely on what you believe a muscle car should be, and that debate is far from over.